Good morning. It's June 24th, 2025, and you're watching me play Balatro. I'm not the greatest at it, not the worst at it. Remember, it is a gambling game, and sometimes my strategy's not good. But anyway, recently I have discovered Andrew Ditch. Now, Andrew Ditch is a man who allegedly in 2019 poisoned his family with laxatives and Epsom salt, and also who is an alleged faker of autism. Now, I did not realize this at the time, but the last time I was in the mental hospital, he was also there. This was probably about 2015, 2016, and he was screaming and yelling and asking for help. Um, but I've learned a lot about him recently, and it concerns me. One of the main reasons it concerns me is because my grandfather is currently on hospice and receiving in home health care. My grandfather is wearing a diaper. The reason my grandfather is wearing a diaper is because he cannot take care of himself. He is bedbound. All he can do is lay in bed, watch TV. Uh, he has to be fed by either his home health aide, myself, my mother, or my grandmother, or another family member can feed him. He needs help drinking water. He has to have all of his medications given to him, generally by my grandmother, and he is changed, generally by the home health aide. However, sometimes it's by myself or my mother, or myself and my mother, which can be very interesting, especially because my mother and I were both injured recently. I want my grandfather to receive dignified care while he's on hospice, meaning I want the aide to change his diaper when it's wet. He can't tell you when it's wet because he can't communicate, he can't talk. I want the diaper changed when it's full of poop. Now, Andy, from what I can tell, is able to change his own diaper, doesn't even need a diaper, all sorts of things. Now, with that, I am concerned that the home health aides or the group home people with him become frustrated and upset and think that their clients are not doing the things that they need to do or are capable of doing. And then because of that, they end up providing less care to patients who need care. Now, I plan on releasing some videos reacting to some of the stuff I've learned about Andy recently over the next little bit, but I just wanted to bring this up because it frustrates me. Um, I've also noticed that Andy will claim that anybody is abusing him, often his father or his home care aide. Now, if you are being abused by a home care aide, I think it's very important that or any healthcare worker, I think it's important that that gets reported and that gets investigated by, if you're an adult, adult protective services, if you're a child, child protective services, or whatever it happens to be in your state that investigates these things. But what shouldn't happen is you shouldn't be claiming that people abuse you when they're not. So I saw a video recently where he said that the police were abusing him for not helping him cross the street. Now, the police do not generally help adults cross the street. In the area where Andy lives, I know that there are some police officers who do act as crossing guards. Crossing guards will put up a stop sign and stop traffic so that school age children can cross the street to get to school. Now, will this help adults cross the street? Yeah. And the reason is because those adults are generally with children. And as those are adults are with children, they have to help their children cross the street, and the police are there as a public service. There are non police crossing guards as well. But the police do not just go around helping people cross the street. Will a police officer help direct traffic? Yes, when a traffic signal is out. Adults are expected to be able to navigate a traffic signal. If it's green, you go. If it's red, you stop. And that applies for pedestrians, bicycles, and cars. And of course, pedestrians have the additional symbol of the little walk guy, which if you can just read that, you can cross a street. I am absolutely astonished that he would claim that he was being abused because a police officer wasn't helping him cross the street. That to me just made me think that all of his claims are probably just him trying to get his own way. Can I be sure of that? No. But was that police officer abusing him at that time? No. Do I believe that some people can lie, even if they have been actually abused, and say that other people are abusing them? Hell yeah. I know that can happen because that's happened sometimes. Anything can happen. But expecting a police officer to, instead of going and, like, I don't know, stop crime, investigate a murder, investigate a robbery, or any of that to help you as a 40-year-old person cross the street is a little ridiculous. Now, Andy claims to have a developmental disability, but the Office of People with Developmental Disabilities has at all times determined that he doesn't, including saying that he doesn't have autism, and at one point actually saying that he researches autism to act autistic or say he's autistic. Now, I've got autism. You've probably noticed it from some of my mannerisms, some of my speech patterns. If you've ever seen me live, you'll notice that sometimes I rock back and forth. That's something I do to soothe. And yes, that's not necessarily always signs of autism, but I have a formal diagnosis of it that I actually received when I was like 11, 10 or 11. It was 10 or 11. It was those years blended together after seeing a clinical psychiatrist and a clinical psychologist for a while, as well as being in therapy and them not being able to figure out what else was going on. You can't just research autism and decide that you have it. You have to go and get a clinical diagnosis, especially if you want services. Now, you can suspect you have autism and say, "Hi, I'm person's name. I think I might have autism. Can we please do an assessment?" And then they'll ask you why you might want an assessment. And then as you go through the assessment, they'll explain to you what you need to do, and then they'll determine if you are or are not autistic. If you are autistic, they'll give you a diagnosis, which can be used to get services potentially, which can be used to get accommodations in school or in the workplace. There are plenty of times where this is important to some people. Like, for example, me, part of my autism is auditory processing issues, which means that sometimes I don't hear everything. And because of that, I am able to record the lectures when I'm in class in college. And I think that's great because that helps me. And when I go back, I can actually understand what's happening. It also has a little companion that, um, what's it called? Um, it doesn't summarize. What's the thing? Provides a transcript, which is really cool. And I don't know if it's AI, but if it is, that's one of the cool things. What's one of the good uses of AI? Because it's not stealing from anybody. It's just putting the lecture into words. And when I do that, I can look and I can look at the writing, and I'm hyperlexic, which is also part of the autism, which means that I read very fast. When I was last tested, I read 300 words per minute. Um, you can be autistic and intelligent. You can also be autistic and incredibly unintelligent. Andy also talks about not having fine motor skills, generally related to wiping his rear end. Now, I have issues with fine motor skills, but I can wipe my rear end totally fine. If I couldn't wipe my rear end totally fine, I would find some way to do so that was not using those particular skills. I would find some other way. Maybe it's a bidet. Maybe it's this. Now, of course, if I were ever to suffer some way where perhaps I had two broken arms, then I would need care. But since I don't need the care, I don't try to get it. I clean myself. But there are things that the fine motor skills cause issues with, and one of those things is I like to draw. I'm not very good at it. And the reason I'm not very good at it is because my fine motor skills aren't that great. But that's not stopping me because it's something I enjoy. Now, Andy here just says, "Yeah, my fine motor skills don't let me do it." And I think that's just an excuse because fine motor skills are something that can be developed. And Andy is in occupational therapy and speech therapy, and he uses an AIC at times, which I think is good. If you need it, use it. And I also think that occupational therapy might be able to help Andy get a job. There is part of this Andy Ditch lore that he was a Ronald McDonald performer, but he wasn't. The McDonald's that he worked at never hired Ronald McDonald performers. He was just a crew member, and I believe he may have actually been potentially in training to be a manager by the time he left. And that's just a regular job. That's a really nice job. Pays back when he was working there, it paid pretty decent. And now where he lives, I think it's $16 an hour fast food minimum wage. It might even be 17. I'm not 100% sure. I'll have to look that up before I make more videos. But Andy absolutely has been able to work a regular job and should still be able to, but unfortunately chooses not to And unfortunately, I think that's making things worse for other autistic people by making it so that people don't want to deal with us. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. And again, thank you for tuning into the videos. Don't forget that you can also see me on Patreon at Sammy5436, where it's $1 a month. I also am seeable on Instagram at Sammy5436. What? TikTok at Sammy5436. I'm on Blue Sky at Sammy5436, though I don't use that often. I believe I'm on Tumblr at Sammy5436, but I haven't used that in at least a year. And you can find me at my business email, thetrapezoidtalks5436 at gmail.com. Any information you need to send to those business emails will be looked at. I generally look at my business email on Wednesdays and Sundays, so just do be advised that I do not always have the ability to respond immediately, but if you do send an email to my business email, and as long as it's not offensive, I will respond if it's something I'm interested in with something positive, and if it's something I'm not interested in, I will thank you for your email and go ahead and say that there may be a future opportunity for us to collaborate if that's something you're interested in.